Shut up and sit down.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to our Last of Us 2 spoiler cast. I guess we're gonna call it a spoiler cast because this is I'm putting this right in the front. Full spoiler warning. We're gonna talk about everything, so if you have not finished the game, go away.
Bye.
Bobby,
Yes.
go.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Address that elephant in the room, which we're gonna open up with.
In the room. Joel dies.
What?
A horrible, painful fucking death.
Everybody's favorite character.
Well,
Yeah.
Everybody's.
I mean, let's dig into that. How do we all feel about that?
Okay, I just gotta put this out there. Like,
Please put it out there.
Why a golf club? Like, I just got like flashbacks to the end of BioShock when that happened.
Kill! Obey!
Would you kindly stop beating my surrogate dad to death?
Oh no! Oh, no! Too soon. Too soon.
Okay, for The Last of Us, yeah, it's like BioShock is like 1,500 years old by now. It's fucking belongs in a museum. Yeah, okay. So flashbacks to BioShock, sure, but how did we feel about?
Okay, so I didn't. Okay, like most people would say, I was definitely not happy about it.
Really?
Yeah, really. But I mean, story-wise, as the way the whole story plays out, it worked. And okay, so let's think about this. Where could the writers have gone with what could they have done if Joel wasn't killed? I mean, I guess what they could have done was, instead of having him die there, maybe he was just beaten half to death and he's still alive but completely incapacitated back in
You
their.
would rather he was a vegetable? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't know. Okay, temporarily incapacitated.
Yeah.
And then Ellie goes out for revenge just for Joel getting his ass kicked. I mean, that just seems anticlimactic in my opinion.
It wouldn't have been as powerful of a motivator.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, would it have been enough to justify all that violence that, comes to follow? We'll get into that, though, in a bit as far as justification, because even the inciting incident for the game, which would be what we're talking about right now, may or may not, in some people's opinion, been enough to justify what came to follow. But, yeah, I mean, regardless, if he hadn't died, if it had been something, a lesser, event, it probably definitely would not have then been enough to justify what follows. And the whole thing would have had to have been amended from there. But I mean, I'd rather not speculate. I mean, because I want to address what actually did happen. There's a few things that they said they were, mulling over in the writer's room that happened. So we can talk about those. That happened or may have happened that they chose not to go that direction or the other. But yeah, I mean, they're writing a game. There are other directions they could have gone, but ultimately this is the one that they chose to go in. So, I mean, with that set in stone, how do we feel about it? As far as, the right or wrong decision or how it made you feel emotionally. Yeah, I'm curious to hear what everyone has to say. I could share my thoughts, but I'm more interested to hear other more interesting people talk about how they felt. So, Colin, do you have any other thoughts other than your Jack Ryan flashbacks?
Yeah, I mean, basically, as soon as basically Tommy and Joel are let into the ski lodge, and he's like, yeah, like, knowing, like, Tommy and Joel's past and how many people they kind of ran into, I thought it was almost out of character for them to kind of like let their guard down so easily at that moment. Like say like, oh yeah, hey, I'm Tommy. Hey, I'm Joel.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
You
I
know?
think they had gotten comfortable living in Jackson and stuff for
Being able
as
to
long as they
handle
had.
anything.
Well, yeah, that's part of it too, but I think it's almost more of just a you know, like I say, they got comfortable. They were able to live there with only the, you know, day-to-day concerns, which compared to our lives were still major, but in their, you know, in their world, it was a little bit more laid back in that setting. So yeah, I think to some extent they kind of relaxed maybe a little too much. And like you said, Colin, they let their guard down a little and opened up to some people in a way that they probably shouldn't have. Because like they immediately know, they're like, it seems like you heard of us.
Well, as soon as Tommy's like, that's Joel, everybody's face in the room lights up.
Yeah.
And then Joel's like, huh, you all
Yeah.
look like you heard of us or something.
Yeah.
And then the bad thing happened.
You could see that coming too, even before you said Joel's name. Like it was like they had to be there looking for them. Like,
Okay, so I'm glad you pointed that out, because initially my dumbass was under when so in the very beginning when Owen is showing Abby their settlement, and they say like he's got to be in there or something like that, and maybe we can lure him out. My brain twisted it in a thought that maybe Joel's people had one of their people, and they were just trying to get him back.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was the way my brain thought, and then obviously later on, after the bad thing happened, my brain was like, "Oh, they were looking for Joel."
Yeah. Well, see, I mean, this is unfortunately why spoilers suck too. For me, I kind of saw it coming because I hadn't seen any of the spoilers, but just hearing people say like, "Meh," like I knew people were upset about something. And like within the fandom, I was like, all right, what could they be upset about? And like three major things crossed my mind. And it was, you know, Ellie dies, Joel dies, or, you know, the story just sucks in general. So as soon as I saw them scouting the town, and then I think the thing that clinched it for me was when Owen says like, yeah, they're going to want to turn back. Like, it's a lot of people down there. They got guns. They got, you know, lots of shit. They got stuff and things. They were like, they're going to want to turn back. I was like, all right, so they're there to do some hood shit. Like, they're there to fuck somebody up, and now they're facing superior odds, and the rest of them are going to want to turn back. But it also made me think maybe their mission isn't that important or that intense. Like the fact that they thought about maybe turning back, which that I was wrong to think. But yeah, as soon as I saw that, I kind of saw that coming. That said, it's just, you know, an inkling. I didn't know for sure, so it was still shocking when it happened. Like, oh, they're gonna fully go through with this.
I was just shocked that it happened so early.
Yeah,
like, I expected it to be like later, like mid to late game.
Yeah,
you know,
it did come early.
Well,
like,
and that's it happened to be at that time to give them the game they wanted to do. But like, oh shit, I don't know. I forgot my point.
I'll add to it, Greg. And it was a thought that I had after the game, because you know, it's like how much more could they have done to expand kind of Joel's character? I mean, if you look at the first game, you know, Joel's journey is really his redemption after losing Sarah, his daughter. Like he finds that basically within Ellie. And at the end of the game, like he chooses to save her life. Like this is his chance to save his daughter, which he couldn't do. And his arc kind of completes with that. So
That's a
like,
good point. Yeah.
yeah, so like it's like where else could they have gone with Joel's character without him just continuing the relationship with Ellie, which you kind of see within the flashbacks
The
throughout the game
flashbacks,
too.
yeah.
But regardless, of that, yeah, like his death is the real reason the game has narrative and it has momentum.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the catalyst and the motivating factor for the whole thing.
Exactly.
Which you could also argue once we get into the meat and potatoes of it, and the real inciting incident is what you were talking about, and it was the conclusion of the first game, which
Right.
we started to talk about this off camera a couple days ago, even before, but about, you were saying it was like the first game, Colin, you were saying was kind of like a redemption thing for Joel, that whole arc. But I was like, I don't know. I feel like it's a little dangerous to use the word redemption, because with this final action, he's also damning, as far as we knew at the time, and possibly even now, a whole lot of people. Because of the possibility that they may have developed a cure, which at certain points sounded like a sure thing, and then at other points it sounded like it was, just a strong possibility, maybe. But regardless, he took away any chance of that at the end, and knew that he was, in a sense, possibly costing a lot of lives. So when you use the word redemption, it's kind of like, did he really redeem himself in the eyes of morality? I don't think so, but he
Was it
filled
justified?
a hole within himself.
Yes. And I think that's kind of like when the game first opens up and he's having that conversation with Tommy. Like, Tommy kind of looks at him and says, like, "What did you do, Joel?" And
Yeah.
like what he said is like, "I saved her."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, in his mind, that's what he did.
He rationalized it to himself.
Yep.
Like, didn't want it to be like a selfish thing.
Yeah.
He made it about her in the way that he's like, "Oh, I'm doing her a favor." But, and then let's talk about like Ellie's anger towards it.
Angie Ellie.
Let's talk about Ellie's,
There's a
her
meme.
anger. What?
I said there's a meme, Angie Ellie.
Angie Ellie. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, rightfully so. But
Yeah.
but like, was her anger towards it justified?
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole lot to unpack, especially once we get the perspective of the whole story and her up and down with Joel. I don't know. I mean, it's really, at the end of the day, they're trying to demonstrate the cycle of violence and stuff, so it's really just like she kind of had to go do that shit.
Wait, what?
Well, in order to like illustrate the motifs that they were going for as far as like the cycle of violence, like she kind of had to go do that stuff. So I mean, talking about whether or not it's justified, I don't know. I guess it's a separate thing.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
I'm not sure you're understanding what I was talking about. What was justified? I'm talking about her anger towards Joel.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant
No.
toward Abby and her group.
Well, that's another point I wanted to point out.
Yeah.
yeah. It's just, go, Bob.
No, yeah, and I'm just curious if, like, do you think Ellie's anger towards Joel was justified in like the sense that he made that decision for her, and she wasn't happy with it? Like, because what does she say at the end? Like, she's like, "My life would have fucking mattered."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like her life would have had like more of a purpose.
Yeah.
Like a greater.
That's what she believed.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, it never, there were moments where it was like, okay, a cure. So when Ellie is in that flashback and she goes back to the hospital and she gets the voice recorder, and it says, even if we found more people who are immune, the only doctor who could create a cure is dead.
Yeah. Abby's father.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it still begs the question as to whether or not he really could make a viable cure. And
I have my speculation on that. I don't know if we want to get into that, but I definitely have a speculation on that.
well, what is it?
Well, I believe it is when in the flashback where you return to the hospital as Ellie, and you go into that room and you get the tape recorder, but you notice, I think you even said it in your gameplay, like there's X-rays on the wall and stuff of Ellie and of her skull, and
Yes, there's like a growth.
she has a tumor in her brain.
Yeah.
And that is preventing the cordyceps from infecting her.
Yeah.
In some way. So I don't know how you would fashion any kind of vaccine from that if it's just like a physical impediment that's preventing
just a freak thing that's
the
just
infection from taking hold.
right.
Well,
yeah.
it's probably. I doubt it's like you're almost thinking of it as like a physical barrier, and I think it's more so like probably something like almost like
neurological.
not even that. I was thinking more like endocrine, like it's probably secreting something that they needed to like get in there and get it and sample and find out.
So I feel like we all have different takes on what the.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, they don't. I mean, it would have been kind of weird if they had gone into it in detail and been like, you know, this is why, and that, like, they definitely left some mystery to it. But that does just leave you room to just, you know,
speculate.
Yes, thank you. That's the word I was searching for. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like with Ellie, the biggest mistake was not just fucking asking her. Like, you know, it's like they might have been afraid that she would say no, or that wouldn't be fair to put that on her and be like, listen, you have this, we can potentially develop a cure for it, for the cordyceps, but you'll die in the process. Like, that would have avoided like everything. I feel like if they had just, you know,
I mean, if you think about it, in the first game, when they get her, okay, so in the series of events, they're found knocked out essentially, and Ellie's brought to the operating table, and Joel comes to, and they're already getting ready to do that, and she's out cold.
Yeah.
But with all that aside, the doctor who would theoretically create the cure, like, do you really think he would want to give them give her the option of going through with it or not? Just like say like in the back of his mind, like he's like, this could fix everything and save everyone. And like, I don't know, from like an adult standpoint, like, oh, like it's just it's a kid, you know, like, oh, what do I care? Like,
life for the many.
Like, yeah, exactly. And I feel like giving her the option was just out of the question for them.
For them, yeah, but I think it ultimately would have been the right thing to do.
But
which, you know, no one really did the right thing in that scenario.
Right, and I think that's what Naughty Dog. Sorry to cut you off, Bobby, but I think that is literally like the general theme that Naughty Dog is going for, and I feel like they made that really clear in this one. Like, there is not a right option. There's just
the option.
The option, like what you are driven by.
Right.
Because, you know, the drive changes throughout the game. But yeah, I don't know. I think they could have probably asked Ellie, you know, for consent. You know, would have been right.
That really is, to me, that's all it would have taken to avoid everything. But
she probably would have said yes, given everything, but we don't know if Joel still freaked out. But
he would have, but it would have been much harder for him to do what he did, knowing that he was going against Ellie's wishes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, if she said, okay, I want to do this, you know, I want my life to mean something, it would have been probably impossible for him to, you know, go against that. He probably would have, he probably would have went into a deep, dark hole. He probably would have gone either right back to where he was at the beginning, not the beginning of the first Last of Us, but the beginning of the present day part of The Last of Us, where he's just, you know, running around boosting shit with Tess in, where were they? Boston?
Yeah.
You know, just directionless basically, or he would have gone further down the hole and maybe even like just killed himself at that point, having been re-traumatized. But instead, nobody gave her the option, gave Ellie the option, and they just went through with it, and he felt he needed to save her from that.
And let's segue from how he saved to how he saved her, and the fact that he killed
everyone,
the one doctor who could create the cure.
Yeah.
And that doctor was this new playable character, Abby.
Her father.
Her father.
Yeah.
So first of all, what did you think about playing as a different character? Like, that was weird.
I was welcome to it. Like, I was just like, wow, we're going to see another perspective happening here. Did not expect her to be the person that killed Joel, but yeah, it was interesting to see the parallels happening. I was just like, oh, is there going to be
very direct parallels?
Yeah.
Alarming at times.
Yeah.
It was definitely an interesting way, just like story wise. It was an interesting way to convey the story, in the fact that she's the daughter of the doctor, and she comes in shortly after. Well, you see in a flashback, she comes in shortly after her father being killed.
Yeah, and she was there the whole time too.
Right.
Is,
yeah.
It's always interesting when you get to see someone's perspective in an event you played through, and at that time you had no idea that they were there.
Yeah.
And then you get to see their perspective. Also interesting that they added significance to a seemingly minor character in the first game, being that doctor. Some guy you just stab in the neck with a scalpel, like, all right, that guy's dead now. Let's go on, move along here.
You could stab him in the neck with a scalpel?
I think that's how he kills him.
I feel like the playthrough I saw, he just like got blasted with a shock. I don't know.
I don't think they showed you killing him in the second game from the first game. I'm going by the first game. I just remember the scene he, you know, grabs the scalpel off of the tray and is like, I'm not going to let you take her. And then I think they just, in the second game, cut to Joel's angry face. But in the first game, I'm pretty sure you like basically wrestle the scalpel out of his hand and stab him.
Yep, it's gnarly.
But yeah, I don't know. I got the whole playing as Abby thing. I almost got like, and Colin, you said this before you knew, and I was like, you don't know how right you are. You said something about Metal Gear Solid 2, and I was like, it's such a like interesting parallel to Metal Gear Solid 2 with the whole like playing as Raiden in MGS2, and Kojima had said like, yeah, we did that so you could see Snake as from another perspective. You know, you all wanted to play as him, but it's different to see him and how larger than life he is and significant, important, whatever he is from a, you know, third person perspective as another party. And in that case, it was to build up someone's like positive features, their like, you know, legendary stature and all that. And in this case, it was to show you, you know, the detrimental effects of someone else's actions that you might have at the time when you were playing as Joel felt those were like righteous, you know.
Right.
So yeah, that parallel is interesting. You know, Joel is Snake and Abby is Raiden, kind of thing. As weird as that sounds. But yeah, not casting him in a positive light now. So yeah, I mean, the whole motivation for playing as Abby really is to make you sympathize with her, and then yeah, see those events from a different perspective from the first game and the fallout of that. Did you sympathize with her? I mean,
I would say
did it
towards
work?
towards the end of the game, absolutely.
Well, yeah, obviously towards the end of the game, because by that point you understand her purpose in the fucking game.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But yeah, obviously not at first. You're like, what? I have to play as her now? No.
Yeah.
And the whole not gonna lie, even up to the end of the game. Okay, well, let's talk about the end of the game, where Ellie is this fucking close to killing her.
Yeah.
Just drowning her.
Right, and like with everything leading up to that moment, learning about Abby's past and her affiliation with Joel, essentially, and understanding that her father was a very important person in the world, I still wanted her to fucking die.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, I was like, I hope to God I get to fucking kill her right now. And when you play,
a lot of people felt that way.
Yeah, and which is probably the main reason why people were like, "Oh, terrible fucking ending, terrible beginning."
Yeah.
But like when you play, when you're still playing as Abby when she comes to the theater, and you see that the perspective of her getting to the theater, and then you're like playing as Abby and you're fighting Ellie, and I was like, do not tell me we're about to fucking kill Ellie.
Yeah.
As Abby, that would be absolute torture.
For me, I had like a freak out. I was just like, I know, like now you're in Abby's shoes. I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do in this fight?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I had, like this mental like breakdown essentially when I was playing. I was like, I don't want to kill her.
Yeah.
Like what? Like I have to smash her in the face with a bottle? Like I was like, what the fuck?
It's weird for me because for me, it's like the total opposite. I totally stepped into her shoes and I was like, I'm gonna kill her. Like, it's like, all right, well, you know, I killed your father figure and you killed all of my friends. You know, it's like, to me,
my father and all my friends.
Yeah, true. Yes. Well, your father killed
your people.
Your dad beat up my dad, and then you know now I gotta fucking. Then you killed all my friends too. But I don't know. It was like I guess I think I had a harder time with the very end of the game when Ellie is basically killing Abby, and you have to like do the quick time event, whatever you want to call it, like you're punching her in the face, and like I just stopped at a certain point. I was like, I don't really feel like I want to go anymore, and like she just basically stands there like, and I don't know if they just expected you to be totally on board with that, because nothing happens if you just stop hitting the button, you know?
Right.
Which is always a weird thing, I feel like, in games when you're supposed to be doing something and you just decide you don't want to do it, and there's no narrative branch for that. But yeah, I don't know. At that point, I felt like it was over, so I had a harder time with that than I had with what we're talking about right now, which was the fight with playing as Abby and going against Ellie. I don't know. I don't know what's different in our brains that made that difference for me, because you guys clearly had a hard time with, you know, going after Ellie. Beyond the fact that she was annoying to fight.
The one thing that I
stupid tripwire bombs.
Yeah. One thing I felt like that moment did do really good, where you're fighting Ellie as Abby, was like just kind of demonstrate how freaking lethal Ellie is. Like, because you're always playing as her, so to see her kind of like go toe to toe against Gorilla Arm Abby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of whoop her ass. Like,
Guerrilla Arm Abby versus Guerrilla Warfare Ellie. Like,
yeah, really though. Like, she was just a little ninja that whole fight, and I thought that was really like just really cool. It's really interesting dynamic seeing like little Ellie kind of sneaking around in the shadows with her bow, like taking pop shots at Abby. I thought that was really interesting.
It was
and
also
then
like
going into the end, like that fight was very like powerful. Like, I know you were probably like, you could not be on board for certain parts of it, but like that was pretty crazy, like Fight Club-esque moment.
You're talking about the end.
Yeah, the very last moments of, well, not the last moments of gameplay, but last moments of combat, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you think Ellie in the end realized that if she had killed Abby, it just wouldn't have made her any better of a person than Abby? Like, do you think that's what she realized, like when she decided not to fucking kill her?
I don't really know, because that flashback was clearly the thing that stopped her.
The Joel flashback.
Yeah.
Like she was like, okay, like
the cycle of violence would be broken.
Yeah, and because like she has the flashback of Joel, he's like sitting playing the guitar and he's happy or whatever.
That was the only like happy like every time she flashed back, it was like his dead face.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that was definitely a narrative like
well,
moving on in the moment. Like,
it was the concept of forgiveness that was being displayed, because that was when she said, you know, I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'd like to try. He was like, I'd like that. So in that flashback, she's forgiving Joel for what he had done, and then when we flash forward, she forgives in some capacity Abby, because she doesn't, you know, feel like she needs to kill her anymore for whatever reason.
Yeah. But also, I think that might have been like, you know, part of like Abby's redemption as a character is, you know, her taking in the two Scar kids.
Yeah.
And her feeling that guilt, and her just kind of taking like Lev and then going through that journey through Santa Barbara together, and like her in every means necessary trying to get, you know, Lev out of there.
Yeah.
It was interesting how powerfully her motives changed to like wanting to save this Scar. But yeah, I don't know. Can we just talk for a second about like how close to death these people get and then just like walk it off? Like,
I mean, I was gonna say too, like you were saying how crazy it is going up against Ellie and how powerful she is, basically, but it's like, dude, the fucking body counts of Abby and Ellie, they're so crazy. Like,
that goes into my whole that like branches into my narrative justification kind of talking point, and like, yeah, man, so much murder. Like, so much murder, and I feel like I can justify most of it, and it really didn't get to the point in your gameplay, Bobby, until you were as Abby and you were going to head to the aquarium to find Owen. Like, you were just doing this, like, you were just going to find Owen. You just wanted to find your buddy. And you murder so many people on that stroll to the aquarium.
Just a casual murder stroll.
I was just like, this is kind of crazy. Like, I don't, like, you just killed like 20 people in an evening. Like,
you know, average evening for her.
You know, and it was like one thing with Ellie going against basically an army.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Seraphites are just really crazy
they're cult.
Yeah, like, just that was, I was just like, why is Abby doing this? Like, what is happening here? Like,
because gameplay.
Exactly.
ludonarrative dissonance, bro.
There was a lot of that where I was just like, there's just so much needless murder for the sake of combat right now.
The sake of survival.
Yeah, but like, really though, I mean, as the player, you do have the option to just like find every bottle you can find and chuck that shit, so they go, oh, what's over there, and then you like kind of sneak by, and you have the option to do that, but no one's gonna do that. Yeah.
I'll kill some motherfuckers.
Yeah, I mean, and they're also like motivating you to from a narrative, you know, standpoint. Like, well, these are the buddies of the people that killed my dude. Like, gonna get you.
Right, well, that's why I said with Ellie, it made more sense. It wasn't really until Abby was just like, I'm going to do this thing and I'll be right back. And then she's just like killing so many people.
I'm going to go get a glass of milk from down the street. I'll be right back.
Like, gotta get to the aquarium. And I was like, okay, so not like murder everybody? Like,
yeah.
So, I don't know. There was some of that. But yeah, I don't know. It's like, yeah, the narrative justification for a lot of stuff I felt like was towards the extreme end. But granted, it is a post-apocalyptic, you know.
Yeah.
World.
So well, I mean, there's a reason that some people like. I read some friends' reviews of the game, and you know, obviously some professional reviews, but some people were like, "Yeah, this is basically just murder porn." Yeah. And I can see where they're coming from that would lead them to believe that. I think it's a little reductive to bring it down to just that, but there's a lot of murder in the game.
There's a lot.
And there's like a pushback when you try and make NPCs so human, and then like the body count and the humanity of those people, like it almost does become like, I don't know, like almost like comical when you think of how many people that they kill throughout the whole game, as like a couple of untrained civilians. I mean, Abby seems to have a little more training than Ellie, but like,
well, there's that whole flashback sequence with her and Owen, and she's the whole time she's like, come on, we have to go to training.
Yeah.
So she's got training.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, meanwhile, Ellie and, I mean, Joel, for that matter, they learned everything they learned just from living
on the streets.
On the streets. Street smarts.
Oh, I just wanted to point out something Greg said in the state of play, in our state of play reaction. You pointed out like what you're like saying, basically like what is driving Ellie in this, because at that point we obviously didn't know about Joel being dead, but you said Ellie seems like he lost a
really angry.
Huh?
What did I say?
You said Ellie seems to like she lost her love interest pretty early on, which is what's driving her and making her seem so ruthless and cold-hearted.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was interesting. I said, oh yeah, I'm reading my notes, by the way, folks. I said that's pretty accurate. Obviously not a love interest, but someone close to her, aka Joel. And I just thought that was really interesting that you pointed that out, because it's very obvious. In retrospect, it's very obvious.
Yeah.
She was like, dude, she was really shoving her knife in those necks.
Yeah. Yeah, pre-launch, I was sure that Dina dying was the motivating factor, especially like coming off the very first trailer they revealed from the party.
Which was a cutscene so later in the game.
Yeah, I did not expect that to, flashback to happen so much later in the game.
And real quick, looping back to my narrative justification, if I were Ellie and I found out Dina was pregnant, I would have been like, let's go. Let's get the hell out of here.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
not okay, so you should stay alone in this theater as a pregnant woman. Like,
because it's not like this is like they really cut the time away, but there was like a month or two that it took them to get to Seattle. So like,
I think it was like 15 days or something, but I'm just going off the top of my head. Yeah,
I just remember Ellie referencing like a few weeks back or something in her notebook.
Yeah, it was a span of time.
But yeah, I was like, she really could have like mulled over a lot of stuff, and then once she found out like Ellie or Dina rather was pregnant, like I feel like that would have been enough motivation for her to call it off. But like they didn't, so that's another reason. That's another example of like where they really pushed the narrative justification.
Yeah, you mean like almost unnaturally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like she was like just like had horse blinders on, just tunnel vision, and just like was running towards this one objective, which I don't know, it felt weird with them going in two directions, one being that she was upset with Joel having found out the truth, and then the other being that she would do literally anything to avenge him dying.
Right. You could rationalize it that way, that she was just so driven by rage, you know, that she just...
That the emotions almost like blended her rage for one thing and the other.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Like, yeah, like, well, she's... Because she, like, didn't want to take Dina back to Jackson.
Yeah.
Because she was just consumed with avenging Joel.
Yeah, but also you gotta remember that Tommy was out there too. So them turning around, they're leaving Tommy out there by himself.
That's also true. Yeah,
but they also did kind of use that like as an excuse too. I mean, Ellie was like, "Yeah, Tommy's still here. We got to go get him. You know, we can't just leave him here." And it's like, "Okay, as soon as we get Tommy, we're going though, right?" And she was like, "Yeah," and then it was like, "Nope,
I'm out."
Because there's that moment where Jesse is like, okay, Tommy's this way. And they're like, all right, let's go. And Ellie is like, yeah, I'm going to go get that boat so I can go kill, who was it?
Abby. Oh, Nora.
Nora, yeah. It was it wasn't even Abby. She was going to the hospital to kill Nora, who might have known where Abby was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that part. I was like, really, Ellie? Like... to manipulate that situation and be like, I want to go save Tommy, and then it'd be like, okay, we got a lead on where Tommy is, and then be like, yeah, I'm gonna head out though.
Yeah, you know? Again, the narrative justification was definitely on the extreme end, and like hard to believe that sometimes.
I think it's almost like the writers did that to feed into the theoretical feelings of the player in the sense that the player would be like, no, fuck that. I want to, we're going to go fucking get Nora so we can go fucking kill Abby. And that was their reasoning for doing that.
Yeah, see, I don't know about you guys, but that was not me. I was like, what are you doing? Like, no.
But here's also the thing, though. Like, even if they went and turned back at that moment in time, wouldn't it just they be in the same place as they were? Like, as that when you go into the first farm like sequence, kind of when you're on the farm and you got little JJ and Tommy ends up showing up at the house and he's just like, we gotta fucking go. Like,
let's talk.
Weird fucking Tommy switch on the like characterization. I felt like there.
Yeah, how he was like, you fucking said that she would pay, which actually she never actually said that. I've just started replaying the game again. She never said those words.
Yeah.
But I think, was it Tommy talking or was it his wife?
Well, she didn't want them to go in the first place.
Well, that's the thing. And during that scene, remember he says, he's like, oh, like, we're taking a break. We're not seeing each other.
Yeah.
And it was him stepping outside that relationship and just worrying about his wishes at that time.
Yeah. Well, I've heard some people say that the events led him to regress back to who he was when he was with Joel on their own and they were doing really messed up stuff.
Or as a Firefly.
Yeah. But I don't know. Even if that was the case, it was like he totally stopped caring about Ellie because he's like trying to convince this girl who, you know, I don't know how old is she at that point? Like early 20s?
Ellie?
Or something? Yeah.
She was 14 in the first game.
Yeah.
This is 6 years later. 4 years. 4 years later.
She's like only 18.
I believe she's 18. Yeah.
So like you're
With
trying
JJ.
to. Yeah. By that point.
What?
By that point, he was saying at the point where they're with JJ at the farm, she's still 18. So I mean, regardless, it's a very. I mean, she's been forced by circumstance to mature beyond what we would expect at that point. But still, he's like trying to push an 18-year-old girl to go out on her own, on a fucking murder vengeance mission that he can no longer help her with. He even says like, "Well, I can't go." Because he's all limpy and he looks like the
got a hole in his fucking head.
fucking
Pretty ridiculous.
Hunchback of Notre Dame face.
Like, with the amount of murder that happens, I found it very odd that they're like, let's just leave Tommy. Like, how do you get shot in the head and survive in that? Like, without being fucking medevaced by air to the hospital
Pure
that doesn't
luck.
exist anymore. Like,
have you ever seen Hell on Wheels, where the fucking guy gets shot right in the mouth through his neck?
Also a
Well,
TV
Tommy
show.
didn't get
Also
shot
a
in the
TV show,
mouth.
I
Tommy
mean,
got
exactly.
shot in the back of the head, dude.
Yeah.
Got shot in the back of the head. He didn't get
Yeah.
shoot like that.
Well,
part
that's
really.
if it affected his like frontal lobe, then that could account for some of his personality change too.
Sure, and I mean, his face was jacked up. Like, it showed obviously that he took that bullet to the head. But I just felt really weird that it was like,
It did
we're gonna
feel weird.
We're gonna kill Jesse, but we're gonna let Tommy live, and he's just gonna be fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, this is
To be fair.
this is a science fiction game. So
Yeah, heavy on the fiction, light on the science.
I mean, honestly, this is a more realistic.
I'm not saying it couldn't happen.
Zombie. This is probably the most realistic zombie game that exists.
I would disagree. I think they took a lot of really irrational narrative leaps to get to.
I mean, zombie wise, it's most realistic. Like
in the sense that they based it on something that exists in real life, but I don't think it extends too far beyond that.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
There was a moment actually in your gameplay where I was just like, this is BS. Like, this would never work. Like,
do you know what that moment
remember.
was?
I don't exactly, but I was just, it had to be some really, like, had to be in a super infected area, because I was just like, this whole mushroom thing, like, would never work. Like,
Never work.
You could never take enough mushrooms for that shit to happen.
Well, because the cordyceps itself, like, hijacks the host and then kills the host, so it becomes a freaking stalk, so it can let its spores go, which is like not at all what happens. Like, you get cordyceps, you turn into zombie in Last of Us. Not like you get cordyceps and you turn into a giant mushroom stalk. Like,
well, the cordyceps in
is
real life do actually take control of the host.
They make
like
you go
ants.
crazy, and then they die. But that's where that.
that never.
Technically, it would just have these people climbing fucking skyscrapers.
Yeah, that's and then like, so to have like all these runners running around underground and stuff was kind of just like, I think it was at a moment like that I was just like, what? I'm confused. Like, it just I don't mind it. Like, I'm not saying it. I'm not trying to like tear it apart. I'm just, there was a moment where the whole thing kind of broke on me, and I was like,
just lucidity came into play. Yeah.
I've definitely had like thoughts about that, like, because okay, in one sense you could say this is the most like accurate way a zombie apocalypse could happen, but then it's like, but is it really?
No.
I mean, think of like Resident Evil. It's a virus that.
No, obviously.
I mean, like, I would say like you always see the stupid articles online, like the rabies virus can turn into like a zombie.
Dude, Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead did it the best, if you ask me. But
I don't know. I mean,
I think it's cool. I like the concept. I think they can even go crazier and kind of use those things that I said, like, and that Colin brought up, like these people climbing up and like turning into weird fungal monoliths. You know, like that could be really.
That's actually what happens, because they're ants that get from what I've seen, ants that get the cordyceps, and then they climb, they die, and then they grow a big fucking stalk out of their head, and then it releases the spores to go infect other creatures.
Exactly. So to see more of a cycle like that would have, like, I think, I don't know, made it even more believable. And more like, kind of just disturbing and weird, and like
it would have been
its own thing.
I mean, now we're getting off into some weird territory here, but it would have been more interesting, but less video gamey, I guess, and more like experiential and a little bit more maybe like cinematic. Because to me, it's weird that some people consider like The Last of Us, the original, and now the follow-up as a continuation of it, to be like this Citizen Kane moment of gaming, like where, you know, it's like just revolutionized storytelling and, you know, cinematic form in games and all that. But it's also a zombie story, and like zombie movies are like the Velveeta shells and cheese of cinema. It's like, are you really going to pack your Citizen Kane moment into a box of microwave mac and cheese?
I fucking love Velveeta. How dare you talk shit?
I love it too. I'm just saying it's like comfort food. It's not like you're going to a tasting restaurant with like, you know, 15 courses and everything is little fancy bits of food. And you're like, I don't know what this is, but it tastes fucking awesome. You know, it's like you're very familiar with this. It's comfortable. And it's just, you know, in this case, it's done really well, but like they made a zombie game, you know, like no zombie movie is going to win a friggin' Oscar, like, or an Oscar.
That's why we get the ridiculous body count. That's why we get
that's part
a lot of the depressing story that goes with your zombie movie.
Or The Walking Dead.
Exactly. Like, people are gonna die. There's gonna be a high body count. There's gonna be lots of gore.
Selfishness takes place heavily.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Ellie is selfish in the sense that she will do whatever it takes to, kind of like what Joel did, in the sense that he was doing it for somebody else, but it was really a selfish act, not a selfless act.
Yeah, no, it was definitely
his selfish act is justified through the other person, you know?
Exactly. And then Ellie did the same thing. Joel was killed, so now she's I'm gonna fucking avenge him. And his brother's out there.
So was Abby's. Like, it's all fucking. I mean, Abby, if anything, she knows the pain of losing a father, and she still, regardless, went out and killed the person who was effectively Ellie's father. Like,
you just reminded me of something though. Like, firstly, how did they know it was Joel? And like how are they able to track Joel so specifically? And how did they not know or recognize Ellie? Like, if they knew, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Those were two things that I had issues with, but I guess like they only knew who they were looking for by name. So but just like the fact that like Abby didn't have any inclination that Ellie was the immunity candidate.
I don't think she really gave a shit at that point anyway, though.
Yeah, her dad was dead. There was nothing they can do about it.
But she could have known about it before her dad died. Like, her dad definitely knew about Ellie before her dad died. You know, they were smuggling her across the country. Like, they had to know. I find it odd that like her dad would have never like flashed a picture of Ellie and been like, "This is the girl that might change the world." You know what I mean? Like,
well, the only way, like, they probably didn't even have a picture of her because like there's no way to wirelessly really send an image, and she wasn't physically there until I don't know. I mean, we don't know how extensive the Fireflies record keeping was. I would assume by their operation it was at least somewhat thorough. But yeah, they must have written down somewhere like we've got Joel. I mean, they called him the smuggler, which is how the capacity in which they hired him to get Ellie, from Boston to Seattle. No, where was the hospital?
San Francisco?
No, it was in Colorado.
Colorado was where the hospital was?
Or was that where where was the college? Was the college is Northwestern, right? Northwestern College.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that section of the game.
Oh, I love that part. But also I wanted to say in retrospect, because in the very beginning of the first game, they meet Marlene, who then hands over Ellie, and who they later at the very end of the first game run into at the hospital.
Yeah,
so back, you were saying, Greg, about like having a picture of Ellie.
Yeah, I guess Marlene could have brought one. I mean,
yeah, exactly. I just thought of that. But at that point.
But even if they didn't have a picture, like written description, like 5 foot redhead teenage, like I feel like her description and how prominent we learn that Ellie's involvement, or Abby's rather, like involvement is with that whole scenario and her. I was like it's just weird that she doesn't like have any idea who Ellie is.
Yeah, I think it's more of just apathy at that point. I think she did, once her father died, just stopped kind of caring about any of that shit. Except killing Joel. I think everything else kind of faded into the background.
Right. Like it didn't matter who the immunity candidate was. Like
that goes back into Ellie being consumed with rage to go avenge Joel. Abby in the very beginning was consumed with rage to avenge her father. And that, kind of like what you were saying initially, Brendan, how like you had the impression like, oh, their mission to go look for this person wasn't that important anyway, because of the way Owen was like, no, they're not gonna wanna, there's too many people. And then Abby's like, no, fuck it, I'll do it my fucking self. Like, she was just consumed with rage and just tunnel vision. Just, I'm looking for this person. I'm gonna fucking kill him, and then that'll be the end of it. And I think that's just what that was.
Right. Were you gonna say something, Greg?
I probably am getting a little short on time.
Okay.
Just wanted to give you guys that heads up.
There's one more thing. Well, there's one thing we definitely need to talk about, and that is the Rat King.
Oh, okay.
Sure, yeah. I guess we could segue into some gaming stuff. Gameplay stuff. We had said when we saw the that state of play presentation is what it was. They had said we have 2 new enemy types. We're showing one today. They showed the Shamblers, and we learned about them. And then they said we have one other, and we went back and forth. I think you had some notes on it, Bobby, but we were saying like, assuming the bloater is still the biggest, and then we were like, well,
the Shambler's got to be like in between the clicker and the bloater. We speculated. And then
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay.
After you.
Like, well, they got to go fucking bigger. And then you said something you like is something like a Gears of War Berserker.
Yeah.
And that is so on point.
Yeah, well,
I call it on point. I think it's something very different than a berserker. I think the bloater acted like a berserker.
Well,
but
I think
I don't know.
I mean,
throw them all into one fucking thing. That's
at the end of the day, the metaphor or the simile, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's really just that they went bigger.
Right,
Is
yeah.
the main point, and there's only one of them, so it's always a little weird to me when they're like, yeah, we're introducing a new enemy type, and it's like, yeah, it wasn't really an enemy type, it was a boss, basically, is what we're gonna call it.
I have a theory on how that like originated, and that was probably just like a concept artist idea. Like it was probably not like a like pre-planned thing to put into the game, and like somebody just designed that for fun.
They saw
like,
it on their desk and was like, what the hell is that?
And they're like, we gotta get that in the game somehow.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the design wasn't like didn't really strike me as like too fitting. Like it was definitely a cool design, but I was just like,
yeah. We've never seen like them merge and shit before. It was so weird. Like,
yeah,
I think it was interesting, sure, but like, I don't know, it just felt like it broke some of the rules, you know? Like,
yeah. Well, you find out like
you could rationalize it. I mean, the way I look at it is like, okay, so that area of the hospital was like where their patient 0 was, like one of
there was a note.
Huh?
There was a note that those were all the people locked in one of the wards. So like,
right, and like, so what my thought process is, you know how like a runner, you'll come across a runner that's standing still, pretty much standing still, just until you spook them.
Sure.
So, and you know, this is a fungus that will grow. My thought is that they were wandering around, and eventually they just start standing still, all close together.
Well, they were in a confined space, so it's like they didn't really have a choice.
And the fungus did its thing and just fucking fused them together.
Yeah, I mean, that entire room, once that door opened, is just filled with fungal nastiness.
The only thing that doesn't fully make sense, because I looked it up and they say it's a mixture between a bloater and clickers and stalkers. The only thing that doesn't make sense is technically those are 3 different stages, meaning more time has passed than the other. So it's like stalker being the least amount of time.
Yeah.
Right, like how do they all develop so individually yet
right.
To me, that was like this was more of a gameplay variety thing than like a well thought out concept. Like there would have been more interesting things they could have done with the ultimate like end of the line for the fungal evolution or whatever. Like, you know, we thought the bloater was the person that had been infected for the longest time, or people that had been infected for the longest time, and now we know there's another stage if you're infected for even longer, but only like if you're in a confined space with multiple individuals or whatever. Like it's weird. I kind of wish they had done something a little more different with like maybe a singular individual that had been infected for just way longer than anyone else. Like literally been like, this is patient 0. They were never killed off. They've just continued to grow, you know, outward. And there's where we could really see that parallel to the real life cordyceps and like just, you know, rather than an enemy to fight, like literally like a monolith of just this massive.
Yeah. You can even get into like fungal maps and stuff, like or fungal mats. I don't know if you've ever heard of fungal mats, but they're like kilometers long patches of fungus under the ground. So like you can really get into some weird stuff. But that being said, I agree with you, Brendan. I feel like there was a lot of that. It definitely was like a gameplay variety thing. Wasn't really like a thought out conception, but what I did like was that gameplay variety, and I felt like the first stage was very generic, but that second stage where he deposits that armored clicker stalker thing was interesting. Like the armored
like a clicker stalker.
The armored clicker stalker was like a cooler like battle and engagement than like the whole like thing before it. So basically the whole carrier form of the Rat King I felt like was very like lackluster, but the design and the concept of the like armored clicker stalker within it, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, all they really did at the end of the day was like shake up existing variations and functions. Like the Rat King main body is just a beefed up bloater. Like,
right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but he didn't really have any unique abilities, right?
No,
he was just a big dude with a lot of HP, and if you got too close to him, he one-shotted you, that's how it is with the bloaters, right? If you get too close to them, they one-shot you.
They grab you and rip your fucking jaw off your head, like King Kong and the fucking T-Rexes.
Yeah.
I do think that the first phase could like throw and explode spores, like.
Yeah, but so can the bloaters.
Yeah, I actually want to point it out because the clicker stalker had that bloater capability of throwing fucking spore bombs at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. I like the second phase. I felt was like a little more original and unique.
Yeah, I mean, even so, it's just a combination of elements we've seen before brought together. I don't know. I mean,
what about the Shambler? Like that? How did they like rationalize?
That was a newer conceptually from a gameplay standpoint. That was a newer idea than the Rat King, though. Too. Like you have an enemy that does AOE, stuff.
Right, but I'm thinking like how. Okay, so we speculated that it's somewhere in between a clicker and a bloater.
Yeah.
Why and how did we not see that in the first game?
Well, I mean, they addressed that in the game too. They're like, how is there new infected? And it's like kind of bullshit because they don't ever answer that question. They're just like, how is this possible? It's like, well, we don't know. You don't know. All right, leave it at that. Which is funny because it's almost a little meta, like questioning itself. Like, how can there be new infected?
There's a lot of meta in this game.
Oh, sure.
Not a lot, but there is.
I mean, there's literally a PS3 with Jak and Daxter and Uncharted in there.
Yeah. that there is. All the Easter eggs.
I think we probably talked about the Rat King enough, though.
Yeah. Well, we were using it to kind of segue into gameplay stuff. Bobby, I know you have some notes on gameplay. I feel like the elephant in the room for me, gameplay-wise, is mainly relates to pacing. I don't know if you have any notes on that, but I don't know. To me, certain parts just dragged.
Well, yeah, like
but that's like that's an interplay between gameplay and narrative. I mean, that was my biggest issue with the game walking away, was just like the second half felt a little too long. I know they were trying to give you enough time with Abby to sympathize and identify with her and give you all her backstory, but like
could have been condensed.
I think so.
Like, okay, I get it. You want me to sympathize for her?
Sorry, I don't want to like throw this off track, but I kind of want to respectfully disagree. And I felt like Abby's was actually way better paced. And the first few days of Ellie's Seattle journey was just a lot of nothing, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking at it as a whole too, because the Abby part comes after that. So it's like you already have that fatigue as your baseline. I mean, the game is stressful in a lot of ways. It's like a thriller kind of horror movie, and I mean literally, but in the sense that it's not, you're on the edge of your seat the whole time you're playing it, which kind of can be a little draining for the most part. So
I felt like a lot of times unnecessarily, like that was the writers being like, gotta keep them on the edge of their seat, when they really didn't need to be that intense.
Yeah, I mean, there were the quiet moments. A lot of them took place in the flashbacks, but also like when you find the guitar in the music shop, and
that just builds the great like characterization, or builds. You have that great in the music shop. You have that great scene. Ellie playing the guitar and Dina kind of admiring that, and
Again, the game is
Time
built
to
on
find-
parallels, but it's also it goes back to Joel playing the guitar and Ellie sitting there watching
teaching her and teaching
from like the very beginning of the game. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I felt that more of the pacing was in the second half. You feel like some of it in the first half. I think ultimately, though, there is like you have to. I think a lot of people would agree that there's some pacing issues. The game is pretty long if you spend time looking around for shit, which is something you're kind of expected to do.
Yeah.
Me and Bobby both had around 30 hours on our clear time.
Yeah, I had 35 and a half.
Yeah, you had even more than I did, I think.
I don't know if that was part of it. Like maybe in the beginning of Bobby's playthrough, he was exploring more in his first couple of days in Seattle.
Yeah.
That made it feel like that, but like I don't know, just like from the story perspective. I know we're talking about gameplay, but like it wasn't really until like probably like the end of Seattle day one for Abby that I was like, okay, the story is finally going somewhere for me.
Okay, I understand now why.
Like Abby getting captured by the Scars and meeting Lev and Yara.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, why didn't this happen sooner? Like, why is this happening now at the very end of the game? Like,
yeah. I feel like it could have been interspersed in a way where it wasn't like, this is the Ellie part, this is the Abby part, and now briefly you're going to go back to Ellie at the end. Like, I feel like it could have been Ellie, Abby, Ellie, Abby, Ellie, Abby, Ellie, Abby, you know.
Or just break it into days, like Seattle day one, you play as, you know, Ellie, and then Seattle day two will just be all Abby, and, you know.
No, because there was, when you were playing as Abby, there were those moments of like, okay, I've seen all 3 days, I know what's coming. So I'm thinking more of like flashbacks and, you know, other sequences that might have worked a little bit better as, you know, cut into one another. Because it was crazy to me that we had that moment in the theater where, you know, bang, Jesse's dead, and she's holding Ellie at gunpoint, and then let's go spend 8 hours playing as Abby before we jump back to this, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously deliberately done. Like, very intentionally done. Like,
yeah.
Was it the greatest? I don't know. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this is maybe more of a wrapping up point, and maybe we're getting close to there, but I think one of the biggest things for me, I really enjoyed the game. I'm not saying I didn't. There's a lot that I really liked about it. But it also got a ton of perfect scores, and I just don't know how they can, you know, overlook some of the blatant issues that it had and give it a perfect score. It's just like almost like the pretentious, like, this is an art game and it, you know, needs to be put on a pedestal kind of thing that just resulted in a bunch of perfect scores for it. I feel like some people had their minds made up before the game came out, for better or worse. But
I think there was a lot of that.
I think, you know, there's pacing issues that you can't avoid seeing. There's, granted, some of this is because the game released during a pandemic, but like there was a noticeably little bit below the amount of polish I expect of a Naughty Dog game in Last of Us 2. There was a point in the Santa Barbara part at the end where like the terrain disappeared for me, and it was so jarring because I have never seen anything like that happen in a Naughty Dog current, you know, Naughty Dog game for me at any point, like in Uncharted or The Last of Us. Just never seen anything like that. So it's like, that is weird. That's like a real actual like polish issue. Not to say it's not a polished game, but
I had a couple issues when you get to Santa Barbara, there's like something with the hint AI where like you know, when you get a hint, it'll show you where you need to go.
Yeah.
It was like, and like I clicked it, and Ellie's like, "Oh, maybe I can climb through there," and I'm like, "I already climbed through there. I'm on the other side of there.
I am there.
I'm there. I'm past there."
Yeah, I
And
mean
then there
that's like scripting stuff. But you did say
Yeah.
AI, and some of the companion AI, I was like, this is shit.
So I'm
Yeah.
glad you pointed that out, because I watched Jacksepticeye's playthrough, and the majority of the time his companion was super helpful. Like when he would go for a,
This guy's not a real gamer.
not a real gamer.
I mean, I kind of, yeah, sure. Let's not get fully into that, but I mean,
Okay. Anyways, well, when he was going for a stealth kill, his companion would go for a nearby enemy as well, like every time. And
Yeah,
then for
that
me, I
happened
always
like
did the
once to
majority of the
me.
work. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, I always did the majority of the work, and the companion would rarely help me like that. So it was like it was a roll of the dice with
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
whether or not it would work properly.
not only were they not helpful for me, like they did nothing really to be helpful, but when they were there was a moment with Abby where I was trying to go stealth. You know, when you get into that firefight at the gas station when you're out on patrol and a bunch of your guys swoop in to save you? And then you get in the truck and you go. Right before that part starts, the guys are coming up on you, and I was like, get there, ready to set up my ambush. And one of my AI partners runs in, tries to take the cover that I'm at, pushes me out, and the enemies fucking see me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, did you really just push me out into the open? Like, the way they had the collision work in that sense was that the AI can push me, the player character, out of my current position. That's crazy. And then on top of that, in the first game, I'm pretty sure there was a mechanic for occupying the same space where, like, if you and Tess went to go to the same cover, or you and Ellie, like, one person would crouch down, the other would, like, put their hand on the wall and be, like, out a little bit, and you would be technically occupying the same space. So, like, that mechanic just obviously wasn't there in that moment or in any time that I remember. So it's just weird, like, that they drop stuff like that. And, like, the reason I started saying this is because of, like, all the perfect scores. Like,
like
I don't know.
lacking animations for that kind of stuff, and some of the clear pacing issues. Like you said, there was texture pop outs, which is really weird, and like
in a Naughty Dog game. I was playing on a Pro too, a PS4 Pro.
And you know, you guys had issues with the AI companions, and not to say that they were bad, like were good. They were definitely bad, but like I felt like the enemy AI more so was just like very non-intuitive and like just generally stupid. And so
I felt like it was a mixed bag there.
Like it just felt like every encounter kind of broke out the same way. One thing that I do want to praise, though, that I noticed in Bobby's playthrough, that I don't know if everybody else noticed it, but the contextuality of the freaking game is kind of on another level.
Oh yeah,
not a level that I've seen before. Like I think it was Seattle Day One as Abby when you're heading towards the aquarium and you're like heading down through the apartment building. Bobby. And you encounter the biggin. Like you like round the corner and there's a biggin right there. He killed you. I think he like kills you like twice or something. Anyway, you're fighting this big dude, and there's like a box. There's like a box behind you, and he literally like pushes you over the box. Like it does this like little animation. He like grabs you by the neck and he throws your character model like over this box. And he ends up killing you, and you replay that you go into that engagement, and then that didn't happen. And I was like, whoa, that is like next level.
I'm like not sure what you're referring to.
Even with like a lot of like the melee combat too, you know,
that's where it mainly comes in.
Like if you're next to like a railing or something, you'll push him against the railing and so you gotta hit him in the head. Like, there's a lot of that in the game.
One thing Naughty Dog has been pushing on for a while, though, too. I mean, you go back to Uncharted. I remember Uncharted 3, like the first fight you're in the bar, like there's there's all these contextual things for like, you know, if you're near the bar, he'll push him onto the bar and like grab a bottle and smash it on his face or whatever. Yeah, they've been working on contextual stuff physically for a while too, and I mean this game also pushes it. Yeah, there's also a lot of like contextual stuff with narrative and dialogue, I guess. You know, just based on what they say with where you are.
Voice recording in a booth is one thing, but all the mocap work in some of those contextual animations is pretty insane.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna have to go in a little bit, so I do want to just like cover one more thing. You guys can, you know, continue to discuss if you feel so inclined. But I wanted to talk about something in the final act, and that was Santa Barbara. And Bobby and I have lived there.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out like that the very end. I felt like it's a really interesting tone, like seeing such a beautiful place kind of like so desecrated by the Rattlers, which were the last faction to be introduced at the end. Just kind of like, yeah, the misery that was going on in Santa Barbara was like very stark, and I kind of wish that they had like done more of that in the game. Because yeah, I mean, like when you're the whole thing, like breaking into the Rattlers' stronghold and stuff,
which I believe was the Fess Parker Resort right there on the beach. Is a real place.
But like when you break the prisoners out and you're like, where's Abby? And the guy says, she's not the pillars. And you're like on your way to the pillars. And it's just like, it is just so morbid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Ellie is like really wounded and like, you're like, is she gonna even make it? Like, and like, you're just seeing all this like dread and stuff. And I just felt really, really interesting to take a place like Santa Barbara that is just known for being like peaceful and beautiful and like just turning it into that hellhole. And, among that, like I thought, like, you know, when you first play as Abby and you wake up in the WLF in the stadium at the WLF base, I thought that was cool. Kind of just seeing their way of life. But yeah, so like some of the set pieces I felt like were really cool, and then others I felt like were just kind of meh. So
yeah,
I do have to say they were pretty faithful on their recreation of Santa Barbara. I did notice they did not include the wharf, which is like a iconic part of Santa Barbara, but like with the train station part, that was the train station.
Yeah,
you go right onto State Street, right, and you're right next to the bridge, the overpass. That's Highway 101. I'm like, this is so cool. It was really neat.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
They did a pretty good job at that. So, but yeah.
I don't know. I almost wish that they had like expanded the space as much as they did Seattle, because I felt like Seattle, as beautiful as it was a little too large, which is kind of why I had pacing issues with the first half of the act, or first act of the game.
It was weird how they threw in that one open world-esque segment too, like only one through the whole game at that one point in Seattle.
Like downtown Seattle.
That was my favorite gameplay from a gameplay perspective. That was my favorite part of the game too. So I was like anticipating another one. I expected to at least get one as Abby, and it just didn't happen. Because I really enjoyed those parts in Uncharted 4 also, when you had the Jeep and it just was like, here's a big area, there's a bunch of shit in it, go explore. So yeah, that's part of why the Seattle part felt longer too, because there was that like, you could just try and beeline it through that, but you still had to visit, at least 3 locations, I think, in that area?
Yeah.
To get the gas and stuff.
Courthouse.
You had to go to the courthouse and the dome.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you had to go to two. You had to go to two locations. But you had to discover those locations first anyway, too. But
True. Yeah.
you know,
There's
outside of
plenty
that, there was like,
safes and everything else in between too.
yeah.
Then you had the bank.
With
That's
the
when
shotgun.
that's when the music store was too. So that whole part is
Yeah.
totally,
Yeah.
you know, I don't like the word optional, but it's like you can miss it. Yeah. Which is
One
crazy.
random thing that happens later on in the game when you're playing as Abby and you're running with Manny, and you're being pinned down by a sniper. Who all thought that? Who knew right away that was Tommy, and how long did it take you to realize it was Tommy, or until the moment when you were forced to realize it's Tommy, did you only then realize?
I didn't know right away, but I think I knew pretty soon into it.
By the time I hit the parking garage, I was like, oh.
Yeah. I know I knew by then, yeah.
It was like one point where he like the gunman like runs away and you see like the tan of his jacket.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, that's not
the part right
because Manny's like it's a sniper, a scar sniper or whatever.
Yeah. No, it was like they said something that made me flash back to the segment with Ellie, which it was a flashback, when he like has you doing the long range shooting, and it was like you have to account for the drop and the wind and all that, and I was like, so fucking Tommy knows his shit about, you know, shooting at a distance. So it kind of just clicked. I was like, oh, it's Tommy, because they were saying like he's good, you know.
Word. Hell yeah. I mean, Tommy's a badass. I wish he didn't get shot in the head. That sucked.
I mean, Joel is a badass. Kind of wish he didn't get smashed in the head.
Yeah.
But shit happens in life, I guess, in the Last of Us world.
Yeah.
In Naughty Dog's writing block.
Yeah, I mean, are there, before we start wrapping up, any other major outstanding feelings? I'm sure there's things that we missed. We might do a follow-up to this because there's a lot to unpack.
I have a lot of random little things like Abby's fear of heights and like the Scar's prophet. Like I was curious about that. I wish there was more lore about her. I thought we would actually meet her, but I did want to talk about the very ending, because with like where Ellie goes back to the farmhouse, she picks up the guitar. She's only got 2 fingers, and it's like real fucking sad because most of us here are guitar players, and we're like, fuck, that blows.
Yeah.
But Colin, you had said the other day, you said Ellie leaving the guitar behind is meaning that she is ready to move forward and accept Joel's absence from her life. And I just thought that was really interesting. Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, so I mean, like throughout the game, it's no, you know, it's no surprise that the guitar is a symbol of Ellie and Joel's relationship.
Right.
So basically, throughout that, you know, she starts playing the guitar, and you know, she sings the melody, and basically says like, if I lose you, I will surely lose myself.
Yeah, that whole song, yeah.
And that perfectly describes what happened. Her anger and her rage and all that. She lost who she was as a person, and she doesn't find that again until the ending of the game, where she lets Abby live.
Yeah.
Like that's where she finds herself, and she stops herself from continuing the cycle of rage that you know has basically created her tunnel vision and her murder path throughout the entire game. She finds who she is. She finds the acceptance and the forgiveness within her, and she gains that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're definitely right about the guitar being a symbol, I think more specifically of Joel, but also, yeah, of Joel and Ellie. This song I did feel like was a little on the nose. I mean, like you said, it perfectly describes what happens. It's like almost a little too perfectly. It's, you know,
Yeah.
literally like if we were watching Titanic and they started the thing with like, if this ship were to sink. It's like, okay, all right, yeah. So I felt that was a little on the nose, but I don't know. I mean, thematically, the guitar thing with the fingers, that was one of the things I didn't see coming, that I was pleasantly, you know, it was unpleasant, but pleasantly surprised with that implication that comes in at the end, and seeing her try to play it and like just being unable to, you know, such a representation of what she has lost, and just a reminder of what it cost her.
Yes,
you
well
know,
said.
Like she still had that piece of Joel after he was lost, and then her, you know, quest for vengeance cost her even that. I don't know. I mean, there were versions, they've said, Druckmann was saying in an interview that there were versions where of the script where Ellie did kill Abby at the end, and ultimately I don't remember verbatim what they said, but they were like, well, we had to be true to the character, and we were thinking, what would the character do? And I don't know, that's where they landed. A lot of people obviously weren't happy about it. I think it does kind of contrast a little bit with the game, because she's just so murderous throughout the whole thing, that to then not follow through when they're saying be true to the character, like,
Well, maybe it was like that whole murderous bit. Well, the middle.
It's just a phase.
The whole it was just so out of character that they had to finally bring her back into character.
Yeah, well, I think what you mean there too is like in character, out of character for who she was in the first game, and illustrating more who she's become in the second game, and then a return to form at the end of the second game, kind of.
Exactly.
But I don't know, it's like almost like a Paradise Lost or like Loss of Innocence kind of thing, where it's like, how do you regain that? Or like maybe she was on the edge of losing it and just barely avoided it. But I mean, I think ultimately they were trying to go for the like the cycle of violence has to end kind of thing. Because you know, The Last of Us 3 would have been Lev coming to kill Ellie if Ellie had killed Abby. And then it would just keep on going. And then, you know, Dina would find out that Lev killed Ellie, and Dina would go, I'm going to kill that kid. And, you know.
Oh, something I want to say.
JJ.
What I want to, like, touch on is, like, do you think Dina's gone? Like.
Oh, yeah.
Did Dina just leave? Like,
she went to Jackson,
nothing to do.
That's what a lot of people are saying. I think that's a possibility. I think, you know.
She was thinking about JJ.
Yeah, it could be. It could be as grounded as that, if she didn't want to be alone in that house with a kid, or it could be, you know, as I don't know what the opposite of grounded in that sense would be, but it could be, you know, just that she left and didn't want to see them anymore and is totally gone. I mean, after the way that Tommy treated her, and Ellie at the end there, I see it as kind of being a little hard to go back to Jackson, since Jackson and Tommy are so, you know, combined. Like, he's like, his wife is like the matriarch of the whole place. So, or
I don't know, but she was like, Jesse's parents would take her in. So I don't know.
True. Yeah, there was that. Good point.
Where do you think Ellie went? To go find her?
That's the bigger question, right?
Yeah.
Where did she go? But I'll let you guys speculate that. I really got to run. I got to do family stuff.
No problem.
All right. All that. But thanks for having me, you guys. Yeah.
Good to have you, man.
Later, Greg.
All right.
Peace.
Later, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've kind of hit on most of the major points. maybe we could do like a follow-up or something after sitting with what we've unpacked here.
Sure.
And if we find some more stuff to talk about, but I feel like we hit on most of the major stuff. Although I'm sure as soon as we stop, we'll go, shit, we didn't talk about that, you know? But,
Yeah.
I got a pretty long list of shit here, and there's not like huge story things, but
well, that's what I mean. I think we hit on most of the.
Yeah, I mean, if I could briefly say, the whole museum part, I fucking love that.
Oh my god, that was like one of my favorite parts in the game.
Yeah, yeah.
Just mainly me, like also like just being a huge dinosaur fan as a kid, like and like all
I was wearing my Jurassic Park shirt when they were fucking
talking about Jurassic Park,
not knowing that was gonna happen, but
yeah. So that was probably one of the best parts of the whole game. That flashback. And I don't know, it does speak to the fact that the quieter moments in the game can be some of the strongest moments. You know, if I had to pick between the Rat King segment and the museum segment, I would definitely museum hands down.
Well, they are like polar opposites in
Sure, yeah. I mean,
I think my lowest BPM was during the museum part, and my highest fucking BPM was
until the end of the museum part when you go into that area without Joel and there's like all that.
That was so anticlimactic. The fucking boar jumps out and like, and I'm like, you like you can draw your gun, that whole part. I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to kill something right now, and you don't kill shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was to not
pacing. That's so good. Like it brings you from like, you know, just like that. It's basically a great summary of the first game.
It's a reminder that the world is not as perfect as
just gonna say that. Yeah.
What's going on in that museum? You're not in the old world, you're in the new world, and the new world sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of the flashbacks were some of the best parts for sure. They had to do another exotic animal. You save a zebra. You had giraffes in the first game.
Yeah, it's the same area though.
Yeah, it's the zoo. It was let out wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, again, that's like another direct parallel of like, hey, Abby gets to have an experience with some weird exotic animal with her father figure too. I don't know.
Good game.
GG.
Yeah, not 10 out of 10 though. Good game. What would you have given it if you were giving it a review score? Outside of how you feel about review scores in general, whether or not they mean anything or whatever, if you had to give it a score, what do you think you would have given it?
9.
9.0?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'd go 8.5.
8.5?
If I had to think, really give it, it'd be like 8.7.
Yeah, I mean,
damn close to a 9. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably would have gave it a 9 myself. It just, I don't know. It wasn't perfect. It was great, but it wasn't perfect. And yet, you know, I don't have the Metacritic pulled up, but
that user score.
So many perfect scores. Oh yeah, well that's outside of just, you know, if we wanted to get into the social impact and, you know, the community response to the game. I mean, we're stepping in a minefield just by putting this video out. We don't have a lot of people that are watching us. We'll probably get like 30 views on this, maybe. But like, as soon as you started talking about it, at least right after the game came out and continuing to some capacity for sure, it's like you're just opening yourself up to get flamed because everyone has such strong opinions on it.
Yeah, well, that's why they're called opinions.
Yeah.
and theirs are wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think people calmed down a little bit as people started to actually finish the game, because like that Metacritic user score, it was like as soon as the game launched, before anyone had time to finish it, it was like it had just they had review bombed it already. And then it started to climb up a little bit over time. Curious what it's at like right now.
94 Metascore, 5.6 user score.
5.6 is the user score.
Yeah.
Well, it was like a 3, so
yeah,
it's gone up a little bit.
A little bit, okay.
So, all right. Anything else before we close this out?
If they had made it so you had the option in the very end of the game to actually like kill, like if it, like at very end of the game, kill Abby, let Abby live, I'd have given it a 9.5.
That would be multiple endings, so that gives you like, that's play incentive.
Well,
like, second run.
They obviously, I mean, it's like a narrative game, and they've decided to make it linear, and the character's going to follow one path. But there were so many moments where, it just felt like, as the player, I feel like I should have control over this. Like in the moment, like you say, it would have been nice to have the option to kill Bobby. Whereas I was saying before, much earlier in our discussion, like I had kind of trouble at that point, and I just like stopped punching her in the face, and I was like, kind of feel like I'm done with the face punching. Like, but that wasn't an option. I had to continue face punching until I had sufficiently punched face for the story to continue. So yeah, and then the part where they're gonna go to Tommy, and Ellie decides, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go after Nora. To me, that was like a branching path moment, but it wasn't, because they wanted to write the story based on how this character would behave. But then you have again, getting into that cliche of Ludo narrative, you get to choose how she behaves in gameplay, and you know, you could have an Abby or an Abby or an Ellie that, won't kill dogs, doesn't kill women, only kills men, whatever you want to do,
we made the MGS2 comparison. I'm gonna do something with 3. I just love that part in 3, like where the sorrow just is like, there's that river sequence, and it's just like, remember all those fucking people you killed?
That's so weird that you bring that up, because I directly mentioned that part to Kara as we were playing through it. When you're playing as Abby and you go into that WLF tent where they have all the bodies, I was like, I wonder if you kill more people, if there's more body bags in that tent, or like if you don't kill anyone, if you try and bypass everyone, if there's like less bodies in that tent. Because I'm assuming that's not how it is. I'm kind of just assuming that they built that out to be full of bodies, to have that impact of like, look, she's killing all these people. But you could also, in gameplay, again, choose how to proceed and not kill that many people at all. And then you would come to that room and you'd be like, why are so many dead people in here? Like, I didn't kill this many people. Granted, there's probably Tommy's bodies in there too that he killed. But regardless, as a representation of how you've chosen to play the game, that room would have been interesting. So it's really funny you bring up the segment with the sorrow.
Yeah, but
I was like,
it's like they talk about like the cycle of violence and the cycle of killing. I'm surprised there wasn't like more of a moment like that, like how Hideo Kojima, when he constructed 3. He did that on purpose,
Yeah. Well, it's funny because there's like the parallel there of both these games / franchises are very cinematic and very heavily influenced by film as a medium, but it feels like Kojima has always been more aware of the fact that he's making a game. As much as he loves films and would love to make films, as he's admitted, he always has very video gamey elements in it, interesting ways to reflect on how you've chosen to play, with the ranking system, foxhound or hound or snake or whatever, to the sorrow in 3, or Psycho Mantis in the first one, reading your memory card. Like, he just has all these really interesting little video gamey Kojima-esque game implications.
That wall breaking,
Whereas The Last of Us and Uncharted and a lot of Naughty Dog's like cinematic games they lean more to the movie side. Like, they're just, trying to make the gameplay as cinematic as they can to match the cinematic nature of the storytelling that they're doing. And as far as like really interesting gameplay mechanics and things like that, I can't really think of any that are like, really outside the box. It seems like all their innovations and things that are interesting are just things that they've done to make it more immersive and more cinematic and more realistic. Like, all the work they put into animation and voice acting and facial capture, performance capture, giving you options as to how to tackle situations from a realism standpoint, and like tools to work with that, it's like, it's hard to think of moments that take you out of it and remind you it's a video game. Like crafting, the crafting mechanics and shit are a little bit video gamey, but they've even made like the weapon modding in this one way more cinematic and realistic and than it was in the first game, with you like, going to the workbench, pulling stuff apart, pulling things from off screen and attaching that. Like, they painstakingly go through the process of, as simplified as it is from reality, but like attaching a scope. Like, you don't have to zero it or anything, but
right. But like, just fucking shoving a snake down a barrel is not going to make your gun do more damage. That shit annoyed the shit out of me.
Yeah, but I mean, regardless, they created an animation and elements. Like, somebody had to build a boar snake or whatever she used, I forget, in game to shove in there. So really different approaches as far as making cinematic movie inspired games.
I just want to point out the facial expressions were so good. They were just like when Ellie's on the ground, when they got her pinned down, when she's like forced to watch Joel get killed. Yeah. Like, and she's like, "You're gonna fucking die!" Like, her facial expressions were. There were a lot of moments where I'm like, I forgot I was playing a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, that's a whole nother debate of like, is that a good thing?
I think it is. I mean, I forget, let alone the fact that I forgot I was playing a game. I forgot that these are animated.
Yeah,
like, characters.
Well, I guess it depends on, you're getting into like, I forgot I was playing a game in an immersion sense, or I forgot I was playing a game, I thought this was a movie,
Yeah. Yes.
In both senses. Sure.
It is a great hybrid experience.
No, I wouldn't say no. I didn't lose the immersion, but like, it was like, holy shit, this looks like it's a live action movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I remember, when you have those moments in games where you're like, it puts you control of the character and you're like, oh shit, I gotta move. Like,
yeah.
Like, that happened to me a couple times in the game.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing, though. Like, I feel like the interactivity is what makes games. So if you forget you're playing a it's less of a game.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother debate. That's getting into like, gaming philosophy or whatever, and that's not the purpose of this video. Oh, I forgot we were doing a video.
Oh, damn.
All right, well that's it for me. I don't, at least in this moment, we've been talking for like 2 hours now.
Oh, we can talk for a few more hours.
I know we could, but I think we could wrap it up for now.
Yeah, we should.
And maybe come back to this in The Last of Us Part 2. And yeah, maybe discuss further. All right, anything anyone needs to yell out before it's forever hold your peace?
Do you think there could be another sequel?
I fucking hope not.
You hope not, but do you think there's room for one? Or would that be open?
What would it entail? I definitely, if they do one, JJ should definitely be the playable character. And I honestly think it would be a great story to, both of the stories have been dealing with a father figure, but I think the next story should be JJ and his experience without a father figure in his life. And it's like the search for him to find that within his life.
I mean, depending on how he's raised, Dina or Ellie, if they get back together, could fill that role. But we don't know how that's going to play out. I mean, as of right now, it's just a single parent. As far as we know, but we don't know because that ending was so open-ended. I don't know. To me,
that's why I asked.
Yeah, to me though, I'm like, no. I mean, there could be a sequel. There probably will be a sequel. Again,
there needs to be no, but I felt that way with the fucking first game too.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say I don't think that the first one needed a sequel. I don't think I don't think Naughty Dog thought it needed a sequel. Now Bloodborne, there's a game that needs a sequel. But Last of Us, if they're gonna do another game, I'm ready for something different. Like new characters. There's a lot of interesting stuff you can do with that world. But take us somewhere new. Take us to another country. You know, this is happening across the world. Like, bring me to the middle of sub-Saharan Africa, like, and show me what's going on there with this stuff.
Probably not much. There's not a lot of people.
No, but there's...
I would say like Europe or something.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot you could do with it, though. Like, you could go to sub-Saharan Africa and you could have a plane that crashed there, and there's just like this, small community of them that grew out of that. How the deserts affect them. I don't know. It's just one thing I'm throwing out there. But sure, yeah, you could go to Europe too. You could go anywhere and, write new characters in this world. Or I'm ready for a new Naughty Dog IP. They're a 2-team studio, and I would hate to see the next 10 years just be alternating between an Uncharted game and a Last of Us game, because they've got a lot of, talent and stuff. They could do a lot of different things.
I'm ready for more. I would want to see Naughty Dog do another project that's, less cinematic and more gameplay focused, and see where that brings,
Jak and Daxter 4.
Yeah.
I'm more with Brendan on this one. Let's see a new IP.
Yeah. I mean, we're going into the new generation. I'm sure, like we said, we're probably going to see a Last of Us 2 remastered launch on PS5.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost without a doubt. But after that, like, again, new generation, it's the time for new IPs and such. Jumping back and forth now.
What is going on?
I was tapping the keys like a crazy person.
Yeah, no, not gonna lie. Would definitely like to see a new IP for sure.
New Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we're actually probably definitely getting one because Uncharted is like done. there's a reason why they named the last game A Thief's End, because it was the last. It was the end. So
that's why they call it.
There's isn't much of anywhere else that can go with that. If they make another one, it's going to be like friggin' Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. Like, why are you? What? No.
Don't do that.
Nate's like, I'm coming out of retirement to fight aliens. Damn it. Yeah, so we're probably going to get a new Naughty Dog IP on that front. And then The Last of Us, I feel like it doesn't need another one. And they should do 2 new IPs.
What about a DLC, like how they did Left Behind?
Yeah, we might get that. We might get
JJ.
that.
Finding Dina, JJ, and Tommy.
Yeah.
Or another flashback.
No, they'll have to appease fans, and any DLC we get will be Joel focused. You will play as Joel.
Yeah, so it'd be like a prequel style, like Left Behind.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're planning to make you fucking a ghost.
That would be sweet.
Ghost Joel. Yeah, just haunting people.
No, just following Ellie throughout. It's the whole game again, but you're just Joel as a ghost following Ellie. Like, Ellie, what are you doing? Don't kill that dog. Ellie. What are you doing?
I don't want this.
Ellie, stop.
And then finally, in that last scene, he just screams at her so loudly, "Don't do it!" that it triggers the flashback, and she sees him and she hears him. And you're like, wow, that was worth going through the game a third fucking time as a third fucking character. Whew. That narrative, though.
You can't collect anything. You can't fight. You just follow Ellie.
Yep. Yep. It's a walking simulator.
It's a walking simulator.
Well, a floating simulator.
Yeah.
Assuming he floats. I don't know. I've never been a ghost. Yeah. Joel the unfriendly ghost.
Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think so. You can do the sign off now. Sign us off.
Thank
Bobby.
you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you liked it, don't forget to smash the shit out of the like button, subscribe, and get the bell on. Thanks, you guys. G-Sides out.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.